Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Laugh at Pat podcast, #Patchats. Today's guest is Moni Zhang, who is a very funny comedian from Berlin. I got to see her perform here a couple times, and I always thought that she was, just really funny and seemed really interesting. Moni is originally from China, from a little city called Wuhan, which she had some pretty good bits about, preferring back when nobody knew about her tiny little city of 11 million. And so anyways, I always thought that she was really funny. And then I saw her make a post about mental health this past fall that really resonated with me. And she was really vulnerable in it. And because of that, I don't know, I felt somehow a little bit more connected to her, even though we had never really spoken. I mean, I think we had greeted each other once in passing at an open mic. But because of that kind of a little bit more of a feeling of comfortability, I reached out to her and I asked her if she would be willing to be a guest on my podcast. And she was gracious enough to agree, and so we met up, and we got to talk a little bit, and she's had a really interesting life. I think at times a really challenging life, but I really enjoyed her story. I thought it was fascinating to kind of like hear her perspective on life, and she's a huge advocate for reaching out and trying to support people who are experiencing problems with mental health and with depression and whatnot. She has a very good podcast that is dedicated to that. She also, back when live comedy was happening, she was doing some shows that were related to that thematically. The link to her podcast is in the description below, as well as the link to her Instagram and Facebook and her other YouTube channel. She also hosts a online show twice a month, a storytelling show, which is also in the description below. And so definitely check out all of that stuff. Moni has a really interesting story, and I was really just impressed with the way that she has taken control of her narrative. And I don't know, afterwards, after I spoke with her, I was telling Anya, it was really interesting that, when I spoke with Moni, she was talking about, all the ways in which she felt voiceless in her life. And so how powerful finding stand-up comedy was, this place where she not only had a voice, but an amplified voice and a crowd. And I was laughing about it a little bit, just because, I mean, it made me appreciate the power of stand-up in a different way, where, I probably just got up there because it's like I need attention and I'm a little bit self-absorbed. And so I don't know, it's just funny to think of it, how much of a deeper meaning it can hold for people. So anyways, this was a really interesting conversation. I really loved getting to talk to Moni, and I think you guys are going to love getting to hear from her. So check out all of her shows and social media in the links below. And now enjoy my conversation with Moni. Okay, so we were interrupted by a phantom door opening behind us, which is fine. I'm not rattled. But what I was saying was, if you could maybe start us off with your name and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Moni Zhang. I'm a Berlin-based Chinese comedian. I'm the most funny Chinese comedian in Berlin because I'm the only one. And apparently, very, very funny comedians are very good at telling people they're funny. And that's what I'm good about.
Yeah, no, I think I saw your reviews on Yelp, like all 5 stars.
Yeah. I had lots of relatives.
Okay, so you were born in China? Mm-hmm. Whereabouts? Like, where did you grow up in like a city or a little village, or what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Wuhan, so by now I guess you already heard about it.
It's
Yeah.
ringing a bell. I can't quite put my finger on. That's kind of wild. What? So, like, so did you already kind of know about the coronavirus then in like December or something?
Yeah.
And were people there freaking out about it already, or was it like chill?
Like back in December, I already saw something on WeChat that there's some trace of it, and I was quite alert. I planned to go back to China last year in May. So my mom asked me to buy the flight ticket. I told her, no, I'm not sure about this virus. Maybe I should wait. And my mom thought I was crazy because she's like, how could this virus last for 5 months? Like, there's no chance it will be end by then for sure. And there's no news about it. It's totally safe. And then we are in 2021, still local at home.
Yeah. Who could have predicted 5 months? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what was before Wuhan got on the map? I mean, it's a really big city, right?
Yeah, it's really big, really crowded. We have 11 million citizens, but I believe there are more because lots of people are not registered there.
Okay. So the the analogy to like a German city, it would be like a Frankfurt or
No, Frankfurt is tiny. There's nothing comparable.
Yeah, actually, now that I say it, 11 million is like a shit ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so what did that mean then when you were growing up? Like, could you, because like I grew up in a small town, and so like a lot of my childhood was like riding our scooters around until it got dark out, and then going home for dinner. And so I'm always interested when I meet people who grew up in a city, like, could you just run around and have your run of the neighborhood, or were your parents kind of like, you have to come home right after school, or?
It develops very fast. I'm 30 years old, so the last 30 years, China developed really, really rapidly. I think at my early childhood, maybe before 10, I come from the ghetto of the city, so we live in those kind of neighborhood that you only have a room, and there's public bathroom in the floor and public cooking area. So everyone knows everyone, and your room door is always open. Like we run into this people's room, then that person. So it's like really like a community. Then it happens very fast when I was like maybe teenager time, around 17, 18. Then this kind of neighborhood almost are all gone, and people start to really like stay in their apartment, lock their door. So I feel there's some disconnection happening there very rapidly. Yeah.
That's actually super interesting because, one, like some of the older apartment buildings here in Berlin are like, some of them have these like weird bathrooms that are left over from this time where they were also in this style with like community bathroom, community cooking area. And I also think that's interesting because there's something that sounds kind of idyllic about that, right? Like this sense of community and everybody's kids playing with each other. Was that a hard change to deal with when things started becoming more, I don't know, somehow dangerous and shut off?
I think it's not a hard change because people used to live in this kind of small rooms because they didn't have a choice, and people's dream is to have their own apartment. But we don't realize that by having a nice apartment, you can have everything at your home to cheer. You also give up lots of social connections. And now look back, I feel, yes, we were living very small area, but there's good part of it, like you have real connections. And now people don't really hang out anymore. And people don't really like, let's catch up, because you see each other on social media all the time, and this person, if you don't they don't chat with you, you just feel awkward to say, let's hang out. But in the past, if we run into someone on the street, like they haven't meet us for like a half a year or 1 year, we would be so happy to say, hey, come to my home to eat with us. But now it would be, oh, that's awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, you said when you were like a teenager, then like this kind of neighborhood started changing and whatnot. What was your like schooling experience like? Because I mean, I don't know very much about you, but like you have like a successful career now and stuff. So I imagine you must have done pretty well in school. Were you kind of like one of the like really, really good students in your school and that was not so normal, or what was that like?
I think I'm a okay student. Like I am not the smartest one, but in China, like I guess it's also the same in the US. Like in public schools, like majority of people, they hang out on the street. They don't care about having a academic future. I'm not one of them. But I'm also not one of those really, really smart ones who excel every thing. So for me, it's like my family always care about my education. I did okay there, and the reason why I have a good life here is because not because I'm good at learning, but my family spent lots of money to get me education in Europe, which is easier to get compared in China, because in China I need to be really smart and have very, very great score. But if I come to Europe, if my family can pay, then I can get into way better schools.
Yeah. I guess it is kind of, I was thinking of like how it is in the States, right, where a lot of times, you know, also the education system has so much to do with like where you grew up, right?
Yes,
you know,
yes.
like, so like in Wuhan, are there also like areas of the city that are like kind of like the rich areas of the city, and then and in those places that's like where the schools are better? I'm just thinking like that's how it is, for example, in San Francisco or something.
Like in Wuhan is a quite special town. Like it's not one city, it's actually three cities. We have Yangtze River and we have another Han River. So two rivers intersects in Wuhan and then cut Wuhan into three different towns. And originally they are separate. Then in the last 100 years or whatever, they combined into one city. And the part of the part I grew up is famous for labor. It used to be a harbor city, so lots of hard workers, and they unload the ships, and it's like people. It's more like a lower level of city people there, like ghettos, and people do small trades. And then there's another part of the city. Wuhan is also very famous for education. So we have like around 100 college universities in one city. So in that part, there are lots of university professors or people who work in universities or related into the whole system. So they are more wealthy and they are more educated. Then there's another part of town that is more about this manufacture, like produce like a steel or like a core or this kind of like a production factory. So my part of city is really the ghetto city and trade part.
Is that what your parents did for work, or what did they do?
My mom, she used to run a sweatshop.
Oh, really?
And then in my teenage years, she stopped the sweatshop and she started to move to the more upper side of the town to do some trade. Like she opened a small shop.
Okay.
I don't have contact with my dad, but he is also like this kind of hard work labors. Yeah, in
What kind of shop does your mom have? Like
my
food or clothes?
my mom
or?
sells like wool and a thread. Teach people to make their own
Okay.
sweaters. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Wait, so when she had the sweatshop, like, do you have memories of like going in there and
We lived in the sweatshop.
wait, really?
I lived in the sweatshop until I was like 16, 17. Yeah.
And like, so when you acted out and stuff, was she like, "Hey, you got to do your chores around the sweatshop or something"?
No, like we were poor. My mom is handicapped. China is very, very misogynistic, and to be in that time in the 90s, being a handicapped woman, decide to get a divorce, it was like crazy. No one has ever heard about it. So we were poor, but she's very brilliant. She's very, very smart.
Yeah.
Like, but because of her handicap, like a disability, like she couldn't get admitted into universities. So she's very proud, while the reality beat her down all the time. So her dream is to give me the education she couldn't have. So even though I grew up in a sweatshop, we lived in the ghettos, but she always made me believe and made me know that my future is in education, and I have to get a university degree. And so even in the sweatshop, she never asked me to do anything in the sweatshop. So we have workers running around. Yeah, that's basically like it.
Yeah.
I think I kind of live like a double life since very young age, because on one hand we were very, very poor. We worried about money all the time. And we never had a home, so living in this sweatshop, for example, I remember we moved many times. I remember one setting we live in an 80 square meter apartment with 30 people.
Wow.
It's the place for all of us to live, to sleep, and to produce, and everything in this 80 square meter apartment. So on one hand, we were very poor compared with city people. On the other hand, we were also very rich, because compared with those immigration workers, they are from rural side of China, and most of them are like, they start to work in our shop maybe when they are 13 or 14. It sounds bad, but at that time for them it's
It's
hope.
an opportunity.
Yeah, because if they come to work in the sweatshop to get some like money to save and learn some skills, so then when they are 16 or 17 they can get married, because they have some money, so they have choice to pick who to get married with. But if without this opportunity, they have even less choice, and anyway their family wouldn't afford them to go to school after 13. So for them it's an opportunity for them to have choice in life. And my mom, she always get me into the best school she can, and I kind of went to a public school, but more like this kind of private school vibes, only rich people go. And so at a very young age, when I was 6, 7 years old, I couldn't process it at that time, but now I realize, wow, how crazy it is. Every day I go home, I live in a sweatshop, and I don't have basic privacy, even like just have my own room or can have a place to shower. But on the other hand, every day I go to a school where everyone are from wealthy families. They have really, really nice stuff, and I'm the only one from this background, and no one told me this is normal, and I had to process this, navigate everything on my own. They are really two different universes.
Yeah, totally. That was what I wanted to kind of ask you about. I mean, that how that kind of affected you, like socially or whatnot. To almost, it sounds like you had, yeah, as you said, like you're living these two lives. Did that make it harder to like have friendships or exist in both of those worlds?
I think have a life like this, now thinking back, I realize it make me to understand shame at a very, very young age. Like my mom also give me lots of shame because she feels shame about herself, and she just passed this on, this way of thinking to me. And then knowing that in school everyone is different than me, and I very fast I know it's something I need to hide. So this also created another layer of shame. And children are smart. They know who they can pick on. They know if they beat me up, no one would go there to fight for me. So I've been bullied my whole childhood. And I also understood that when other kids got bullied at school, their parents will go to school to argue. But my mom, I knew that, it's better to just let people beat me than ask my mom to go to school, because people will make fun with me even further.
Yeah.
So it's now thinking back, that was tremendous amount of stress, and that make me feel like I just don't understand what is friendship, because until a very late age, I just never had friends. And this kind of constant feeling of being an outsider, for not being accepted. And interesting, I had a conversation with a Chinese female friend. She asked me that she's not sure if she should go back to China or stay in Europe. She fear if she find a partner, Chinese partner, it would be better than a European partner, because she feel like Western partner would never understand her because of the cultural gap. And interestingly for me, I was thinking about her statement. I realized, actually I fear it was even harder for a Chinese person to understand me. The cultural gap is even bigger, because when we are talking, we are different. You try to understand me. But when I talk with a Chinese person, they try to assume their life is normal and everyone have that normal life. And for example, I have a friend for 5 years, she's really close with me, but she never bothered to ask me what my life was like, and how my perspective was like. She just know, maybe I'm a bit different, and she doesn't want to ask because she doesn't want to hurt me. So, but she also made lots of assumptions. So turns out 5 years later, she just never really know me.
Yeah, it sounds like from your experience, I can imagine also that would really make you put up some kind of defense mechanism and barriers. Is that specific to your childhood, or is that also part of kind of the culture in China, that it's a little bit more people mind their own business, or?
I think both. I think on one hand, the culture in general is like that. It's a very homogeneous society. There are lots of discrimination. For example, it's like in official documents, hiring standards, they would write, we want to hire someone. Requirements not shorter than 160, not disabled, have a beautiful face.
Really?
This is normal. No one thinks there's issues in it, and it's so common to discriminate others. People in the city would discriminate people from rural area. Rich people would discriminate poor people. Healthy people will discriminate handicapped people. Happy family will discriminate broken families, and it's all about competition. And because people are so homogeneous, so if you are stand outside of a norm, make you seem so strange. And it's something you the whole society make you feel it's just normal for you to feel ashamed. And I think that's the culture itself. For example, I have some friends not have this kind of hard background as I do, but even with their own family, they looks perfect, but they would never have the courage to tell others, oh, actually my father suffers from mental illness, or my family is not happy. They would never tell anyone this because everyone tries to live a perceived happy life in the eyes of others, and that's the goal of life. This is one part, but on the other hand, I think I'm not from an extremely poor family in China, but I do come from an extremely poor family in China compared with those people who can have a voice in front of international people. I do think like if you want to look at the data, probably my family is like the top 2-3% in China, but China is big, and then you see those Chinese people in the West, they are probably most of them are the top 1%. So compared with them, my family was extremely hard and really difficult. But there are so many people exist, they just don't have a voice.
Is there any movement like within, I mean, I know obviously like you haven't lived there for a while now, but like within kind of like your generation or the younger generation that is like pushing back against some of this like discrimination and stuff? Because I mean, like you see that in a few different countries around the world, and but like especially from an American perspective, I feel like we have such a warped and also like not incomplete view of like what is actually happening with China.
How to say it in this way? I do feel probably there's some movement, but it's very limited because on one hand, most of the media are controlled by the state, so it's very homogeneous. On the other hand, nowadays the culture there is super materialistic. If you check online, it's all kinds of like celebrity stuff and expensive brands. And if you check what they talk, you will see, wow, everyone earns so much money in China. But in reality, I think like 90% of people earn like less than 200 euros per month. So there are lots of people that don't have voice. And I think now it's with social media like TikTok, it's getting a bit better, but still. And I feel I watch lots of American stuff. For example, I watched like a senator hearing about a lady. She talks about how expensive to be poor in the US, and she is poor. But she's so good at talking. She's so expressive. But in China, I think when people are poor, most of them are not educated, and they are just not capable of really raise their opinions and to express themselves.
Yeah. Well, so since we just touched on education there, I wanted to come back to this your story a little bit, which is like, so your mom is like paying for you to go to these schools and stuff. To me, that feels like that would feel like some level of pressure that like your mom is putting this huge effort and also trying to help you live this dream that she wasn't able to realize herself. Is that accurate, or?
I think there's a pressure Asian parents they really can sacrifice anything for the children. For example, in order for me to study in Europe, my mom for 10 years she sold her apartment, and for 10 years she barely bought anything for herself and just work day and night to give me the money. She used all her savings. So it's very common, like in China, people go study in Europe, but they end up cannot finish because it's very demanding here, language barrier, cultural barrier, and also it's really lonely here because it's not our environment. Lots of people end up getting back home. So there's a tremendous amount of stress that I don't have a backup. This is the way I choose, and I need to go until end. I don't. There's no way back. So that is a stress a lot. I'm happy now. I powered through. I am at the end. I was able to find a quite well-paid job. I had a few years professional life, and I did quite good. But now I'm at a moment I realize financially I'm secured. I have the degree, but this is really not something I want to do. And thinking about doing this job for makes me sad, and I cannot get up in the morning. By telling her that, she could understand, and she's supportive that I am now doing around that, trying out with comedy to see how far I can go. So I feel like I'm really blessed that my Chinese mom can support me to after my expensive degrees, to support me to become a comedian.
Yeah.
I think it also helps because now she use Chinese TikTok a lot, and she follows a lot of people, and maybe driving a camper van around the country and just earn some money. And she can see example. She's like, those people can drive a van and earn money. Why can't you? So she knows there's money in it.
Yeah, she understands there's an opportunity, and that also it's like it's a dream for you.
Yeah. So I think she has good she has expectation on me, but she is not like other kind of Asian parents, like, oh, you have to be a doctor, you have to earn lots of money. For her, like, now I live in Europe, financially I'm secured, and I have a very good degrees. She thinks that's successful enough, and whatever I do, she's proud of me.
That's awesome. Well, let's take a little break, and then we'll do a second half. Okay, so where we left off was, you kind of told us a little bit about your experience growing up in China, and I wanted to, before we start talking about comedy, we alluded to it, which is good storytelling.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience of when was it that you finally came over to Europe and started studying? Like, how old were you?
I come to Europe when I was 21, I think.
Okay.
So in China, the education system is very fixed. So we go to university, we go to school, and everyone take the same exam on the same day, and that's your only chance. And according to that grade, then you can be picked up by different university. And I didn't do well on my exam day, so I ended up in at a not good university, and I was so bored and so unhappy there, and I just totally collapsed. And I wanted to. I feel so resentful because after I finished this exam, I told my mom I want to redo my exam, which means I have to go back to high school to redo my last year. My mom was not supportive, so I ended up into this university I didn't like. So 2 years later, I totally collapsed, and I told her, really, this life I cannot live anymore. And then our only choice, basically, either go abroad to study or go back to high school to start all over again. And going back to high school, there's also like a risk that I still will fail that year. So at the end, we decided to go abroad to study.
Is it common that like people would go like in your like final year of high school that there would be someone who was, you know, like 23 or 24 who's trying to like
most people would it's not uncommon for people to repeat 1 year, but it's very uncommon after 1 year, because in China, people's what you do at a certain age is also very fixed. You graduate from university when you are like 22, 23, then you find a job, work 2-3 years, get married, have children. So especially me being a girl, to waste like 2-3 years time is crazy because I can go back to high school at 23. Then when I graduate from university, I will be 28 already. No one would marry me anymore. So they need to think about that also.
That's just a is an interesting concept in a place like here in Berlin where people are like 28. Like, I'm not ready to have like a monogamous relationship. I'm too young to have monogamous.
Also, like in Berlin, it's very common. Like people are 30 and they're studying, and it's totally normal.
Yeah. So you go to Europe and you're like 22. What was that like? Was that like a huge? Where did you go first? Did you come here to Berlin?
I went to Netherlands. I studied in Rotterdam for my bachelor degree.
And what was that first? I imagine like that must have been the hardest period as far as like a culture shock.
Yeah, it was very, very hard. Now thinking back, the whole first 3 years, at least the first 2 years, I was severely depressed. I didn't know the concept then, but now thinking back, because I studied business, so I went to a very fancy business school, and that means most of my classmates, they are from like very wealthy families, and they travel all the time, and they all talk about party all the time. And then I come from China. I have financial stress. On one hand, all the students around me, they care about party, traveling. I don't have the money. On the other hand, there's lots of cultural differences too. And nowadays, like for example, if I hang out with you or other comedians, they know there's cultural difference. They try to get to know you because also we are mature adults. You have the curiosity. You have
when
the
I was 21,
capacity.
no.
Yeah.
I would have been obnoxious.
And also like when I like in Holland, people study really, really early. So most of my classmates, they are 17 and I was 21. So it make me such a like outsider, and people talk behind my back, calling me an old lady just because I was 21 years old. And then on the other hand, like the Chinese students, like they are also very lonely, but I thought we are Chinese, but then at the end I realized we are so different because they are from wealthy families. They play mahjong, they go to restaurant all the time, but I was always stressed. So the first 2 years, it was really, really bad. Like mentally, I don't know how to adapt. Also, it's not an English-speaking country, so I feel like I was so disconnected with the environment around me.
And how did you like cope during that period?
I think I really put my hope on finding a boyfriend. And also like working part-timely really occupied lots of my time. And I survived. At the end, I survived this, but I wouldn't say I coped well. Now thinking back, like it was really, really bad.
What was the point where you started to feel like comfortable here?
I think,
or have you? I don't want to assume.
I think the first breakthrough is when I come to Germany. I moved to south of Germany to get my master's degree. It was also a business school, but it's a public school, so it's mostly for students who are smart enough, but they are not so wealthy, because if they are wealthy, they go to the private business school. So I meet lots of people like me who's driven, who want to have a career, but they have a modest life. So I connect with lots of people there, and the visa situation was way better. I was allowed to work in big companies, so I started to build my professional life. It also gives me lots of confidence. That I start to have some friends that really helped a lot. I think the biggest breakthrough is what I had 3 years ago when I started to... Actually, 4 years ago, I had a really, really bad depression when I was in Berlin. It suddenly, like, life is like this, how to say it? Lots of people, they go through lots of hardship, but they collapse when they get out of it. Because when you are in it, you are too occupied to access your feelings to really to be depressed. You need to have some mental capacity. So I never had the mental capacity, but then eventually I graduated, I found a good job, and my life stopped to have a purpose, because for so many years my purpose is to graduate, to find a career, and to support myself. And suddenly I achieved all this survive instinct, then I don't know where it goes. I kind of just like float and just lost myself. And it was the first time I have the time and space and the financial ability to take to think, am I happy or not? And then I realized I'm really, really not happy. I was so depressed. Like 4 years ago, I almost committed suicide. Then I kind of feel like like depression is kind of like a wake up call.
Yeah.
They make you realize you have to make changes in your life.
Yeah.
And then I went through all this. I start to get treatment, and the mental wall I built around myself, I start to tear it down. And I also start to do comedy, and that's the time I start really to feel like I'm integrating. I really get the culture, and I really can communicate with people, and I really feel home.
Yeah, no, that's like I had my own struggles, like with depression and suicide and stuff. And the thing I tell people often is that it's like, actually that depression was like the best thing that ever happened to me, because exactly your point, where it was like I was trying to be something that I wasn't, and eventually it caught up, exactly how you explained too, where it's like all of a sudden you have this space to realize, and you're like, it really yeah. So that's a nice segue, I think, also, since you mentioned like you started getting help, and also started doing comedy in this period. What had you been interested in comedy like all your life, or is this something that you came to later?
I think yes and no. Now thinking back, I realized I was always trying to be funny, because like little young girls at school, only those beautiful girls, good looking girls get treated nicely. And but I also want to make friends, so my way was like kind of like the clown and trying to make jokes. But at that time, like in China, we don't really have this format, and people didn't know I was making comedy, and I also didn't know I was making comedy.
Yeah.
But I would tell some stories. I would improve on it. But people would keep saying like, "Oh, Moni, she exaggerates so much. You shouldn't trust her. Like she always like tell fake stuff."
You're like, I'm just trying to make it more entertaining for you.
Yeah, and now thinking back, I was already doing the craft
Yeah.
at that time, but I didn't know. And do I know about comedy? Not at all. I only know comedy, like a stand-up comedy, what it is, 2 weeks before I went on stage.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you did you find out about it and then you're like, I have to do this thing? Or how did that?
I think it's like a really lots of coincidences put me into that time, that opportunity. I just came out, like I had a very, very depressed period, and I started coming out of a little bit. I start to feel energized, but I still have lots of things not sorting out. And I took a deep acid trip. I start to like it kind of like opened my eyes and my mind for the first time, and I was in a very open-minded state. And then like a few days later, I went on a Tinder date. He asked, "What should we do?" I hate going to going to bars, and I was like, "Okay, let me try to find something." And then I found this stand-up comedy event, and I saw it many times before, but in my mind, it's always like this kind of stereotypical American show, like open mic, no one laughs, there's no audience, super awkward. And but at that time, my mind is just so open. I was like, why not? Then I went to a stand-up comedy show with this guy, and it was crazy. I was like, I don't remember I was laughed so hard last time. Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is funny, this is amazing, and the whole time I just want to interact with the stage. The whole time I was like, I want this, and then two weeks later I went on the same stage.
Wow. So did you just like after the show, did you just ask, or was it one of the, because sometimes some of the open mics here, they'll mention like, if you're interested, like you can sign up online. How did you figure out about how to sign up? And
I just have this strong feeling I want to do this, and then I just this show and another show, I just find on Facebook page. I ask if I can sign, but they say yes, just come. And the first time I was on stage, I fear that how to describe it. I feel I'm on top of the world. I feel I have all the power in the world because it's the first time ever. Like I guess I always wanted to have a voice, but in the space I didn't have the opportunity like the back home, like because of my situation. Like I just never got the attention. And then finally, like this is like perfect. I always like to talk, but in China, that talking is a bad thing for girl. Like if you go on a arranged dating, the most mentioned thing, good quality about a girl is that she's quiet. Being quiet is a good thing, and being loud is a bad thing. So I just never know, like the fact that I like to talk, I'm loud, I can use it, and it just feels amazing. And even at my first show, now looking back, yes, it was horrible, my first show, but I realized I already have lots of comedy instincts. I knew how to redirect people's, mislead people's mind, and then say something else. It was amazing. Like it's a drug. I just get hooked on it like immediately.
yeah. So what is the kind of comedy situation in China? Like, was there like television or radio shows that you listened to growing up?
Like we don't really have this comedy. Like we have something called 相声. It's like 2 person, but it's not stand-up comedy.
But like, is there like some sort of thing that's similar to like sketch comedy or like the Tonight Show or something like this?
No. Like we are not most famous for humor, and I really know.
Okay.
And nowadays they have some stand-up comedy, but it's a different thing. Like they don't. The comedians are not polished in open mics. They start from not doing comedy to directly doing TV comedy, and their comedy material are not polished, and they don't write their stuff alone. So they call it stand-up comedy, but it's a very different thing.
Interesting. So so you start doing you do your first show and then your first couple of shows. What was like, did you have a first experience of like the first time that you had a really good set, or the first time that you had a really bad set that sticks out in your memory from that beginning period?
I think the first show I did was already quite good. Like people were laughing, and how did the first really good show? Let me think. Cosmic Comedy Club.
Yeah.
I think I got invited to do a showcase after 2 months doing comedy.
Oh wow.
So it's just one day an idea suddenly come to my mind, and I wrote it down, and it's a full 7-minute set, and I still use it sometimes, and it's really a good set, and made me just realize, growing up, my mom always tell me like, you are not talented, you are not creative, you are not smart. The only way for you to make a living is through hard working. And Chinese people are famous for hard working, but we are not famous for being creative. Like lots of kids were sent to learn instruments or painting, but they learn the skill part, the craft part, but not the creative part. So it just never came to my mind I'm a creative. And the fact that I can creative and I kind of have a nature feeling about it, made me just feel so powerful. Like I feel, I grew up convinced that I'm not special, but actually I am.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and also I think will be so powerful for you because I mean I think you have to have the creativity, but also if you want to be successful, you also have to have the hard work. So it's like you already had this work ethic instilled in you, and now you're getting to like discover and explore your creativity. That seems like it's going to be really powerful for you.
Yeah, that's what I convinced my mom also. Like I told her like, I hate this job. I hate business. I never liked it. I never had a feeling for it, but I end up having such a high payment job in such a big company. Imagine if I am working on something I like and I'm passionate about, I would work on it when I sleep. Imagine how much I can achieve.
Yeah. So that brings me nicely to something else I wanted to ask you about. As I've been talking to different comedians here that I've seen in Berlin, I'm always interested to hear about people's kind of like creative process. Also, as I'm trying to refine my own, like learn how to be more effective and stuff. So, do you have like a set schedule that you keep to as far as like writing stuff, or what is your strategy for trying to create material?
I think I feel quite bad about it. I should have a better process. Right now I don't have a fixed load to write it. I do feel if I every day have 1 hour to sit down to write, it would be really, really beneficial. I think the key to write good stuff is to write a lot of stuff. Like not, you shouldn't write only when you have idea. You should write no matter what. Then good stuff can come. Now I have a process. Like every day I wake up to write morning pages. Like 3 pages of a string of consciousness text. I feel that really inspire lots of creative ideas. And I find for me right now what works is doing a lot of stuff. For example, now I have a podcast, I have a storytelling show, I have book club. By doing those stuff, connect with other creatives, it generates lots of ideas and different parts of creative part. So and I do lots of shows with people. I think for example, on Clubhouse, like we don't do stand-up comedy, but more like a talk show, and we talk with each other, and lots of ideas can be generated during those talk conversations.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's also a good point, is like in this time of lockdown where there's like so little input, any way that we can connect with each other and get some sort of like outside thing, because I don't know, I've just found that for myself in my apartment, just being like, like what's a new idea when I've just been sitting in this same room for like 6 days straight, or so to speaking a little bit about your podcast and also your storytelling show, they both cover the theme of kind of like mental health, right?
Yes. I'm now since last year October, I start to really focus on this mental health topic because before I do comedy, I thought I was the only one in the world who's depressed, and then I start to talk with people. I realize it's such a common thing. People don't talk, even among comedians, and I start to talk about it very openly. And at any party, at any family gatherings, I always can run into someone who's depressed, or they're like loved ones who's depressed, but they just don't talk about it. And I remember how frustrated, how lost I was, thought I was alone. So I just want to help some people to avoid this type of pain. At least knowing that they are not alone, knowing that there's help out there, and asking best practice from others. So right now I kind of like making a whole umbrella of productions. I have podcast called it's Mental Health Comedy Berlin.
Link in the description below.
Yeah, it's below. So I interview different comedians, ask their stories about mental health, also about comedy. And then I have a storytelling show. I think this storytelling show is not mental health owning stories, but I realize by sharing real stories to each other, it's healing in its own way, because you realize everyone has some shit going on in their life. It's all about perspective. And I also have a book club. So bi-weekly, on Sunday evenings, we talk about this book, Johan Hari, Lost Connections. It's really, really a great book. It's the best, most helpful mental health related book I ever read, and it really helped me to break through lots of mental blockers. And now I'm going to launch a new project on Clubhouse. It's about Asian trauma comedy. So I connect with a few Asian comedians. We want to kind of like use some dark humor to talk about our experience, either by grow up in Asia or having Asian parents, and how this impact us, how we process all this pain in our adulthood.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. Also, to this perspective, like I would love to hear more, like about kind of this, how you found your way to like kind of connect with the like culture here or whatnot, or I don't know, this idea that you were talking about of these like 19-year-olds and all they want to talk about is like their parties and their travels, and you're like, where is my place with that?
Yeah.
I just always, I find that's like such an interesting perspective. But well, so to end here, I usually like to, or I'm saying like I usually like to, but this is only the second time I've done it. But I like to end with either if you have a story about like the worst job you ever had, or maybe a time that you like really laughed like the hardest in your life, or a crazy drug experience. Do you have anything that you would?
I have a crazy drug experience, and I have a worst job.
Okay,
which
great.
which one you want to hear? I will only tell one.
Well, there's no chance that you would tell both.
No.
Do you feel like one is better than the other?
Oh no.
Okay, I kind of want to hear about the job, just because I'm always interested in bad jobs.
This is something very mental health related.
On brand.
Yeah, I'm only able to tell this to others since 6 months ago. It's something shamed me for many, many years. I wasn't able to talk about it. So this when I was in the Netherlands, I was very, very poor. It's very expensive there, and my mom had a car accident. She permanently lost her ability to walk, and so I was under tremendous amount of stress. I need to earn some money without being able to speak the local language. The only type of job I could find is to work in massage salons. And the massage salons in Netherlands have very bad reputations, and there are lots of them doing very fishy stuff. I've been, for example, I've been working in a salon. Here comes a guy. He asked me to give him a happy ending, and I said no. And he would count the money in front of me and say, "Are you still saying no?"
Really?
I said no. And then he said, "Okay, if you don't give me a happy ending, I'm going to tell your boss that you gave me a happy ending anyway, and you'll get into trouble." And so it's a very, very toxic environment. And I have lots of colleagues, they would end up doing this or even become prostitute. But I always hold my principle. I wouldn't do anything not ethical against my values. So I couldn't find a clean massage salon in the whole Rotterdam. I had to travel to Amsterdam every day, 2 hours train ride to Amsterdam to give massage, because The
Wow.
environment was so bad. And the job itself is also very, very boring. Like you are in a small booth and looking at the back and just massage it hour after hour and after hour and after hour. Like you just want to kill yourself. And
Also, I never thought about it, but like it's actually kind of like a workout. Like if just hour after hour you have to like put all of this pressure on people, like would you be like physically exhausted
I have
also?
very nice shoulder.
Yeah.
but it's more about the boredom.
Yeah.
And you are not mentally stimulated, and it's also very badly paid. And also on top of that, there's this shame associated with it because I'm giving massage. So that means I also disconnected with lots of people. For example, my rich Chinese friends, because they judge me. So also lots of social isolation. And you just don't feel hope. Like every day, just massage people's backs. So, and I really tried very hard to stay my principle. I went on so many extra miles to just stay to be clean, but when people accidentally know I had this job, they would immediately start to make sexual jokes about it, and it always make me so angry because really, dude, I tried so much things to just stay clean, and then you make this type of jokes to hurt my how do you say
Like your pride?
yeah, my pride. And so I just feel like deeply scarred and traumatized by this. Since I left Holland, I never told anyone that I had this part-time job. And sometimes I would mention that I did part-time job. They always ask me what. I always say, oh, I clean dishes in restaurants. Because I know there are so many prejudice and discrimination associated with massage job. I was just never able to talk about it. It's like a dark secret in my deep in me until last summer I did a comedy workshop, and they asked us to act out a strange job, and I acted out this job, and at the end I realized, oh, it's been 10 years. It's the first time I am capable to share with others this part of my past, and that's the moment I again realized how powerful comedy is.
Yeah. Do you feel like those type of like dark experiences, or also this pressure and stuff that you had with the way that you grew up, are those things that you can draw on and like create comedy from, or is it more that it informs your sense of humor into making it, maybe you see the world in a different way?
I think both. I think there's a senior comedian told me that I have a dream most of comedians would dream about, like it's a gold mine for material because it's so different, so alien. I do feel it. I'm not good enough yet. I think one day, especially now I'm working on my comedy special, I think would be most about my past, and it would be a 1 hour for me to process my past and to see light and show hope to others. I feel it's a constant source for my inspiration, and it's a comedy. It's also a way for me to process those memories because it's like free therapy. And I realize all those hardship I've been through, there's a meaning, there's purpose. It serves me. Now I can make art with it. I can inspire others. I can make other people laugh. So the suffering has a meaning. This is one part. On the other part, I do feel because I have this background, so I have sometimes rather dark humor, and I for example, I would think white people are pussies. but I think it added a different perspective in the comedy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's also interesting, like the idea of like a massage job. Like, I mean, I think the stereotype of like some gross guy propositioning you, it's like, I can assume that, but like the perspective of it just being boring, monotonous, like, I don't know. I had never considered that part of it, you know, and so that's such a unique perspective. But yeah, what you made me think of when you were talking about like that all of this can build to be kind of ammunition is like a therapy tool that I learned like when I was dealing with my own depression, was this idea of like that you can make a narrative of your life, you know, that like you're the protagonist of your own story, and that's like a way that you can take these dark times and give them meaning. You know, it's part of your hero's journey where it's like, I had to go through this and this, but that is like what led to, you know, this.
I think my life is totally a hero's journey. I'm the front hero and my mom is the back hero.
Yeah.
And then we have this hero fight because she's also a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you have anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up?
I want to say that the whole topic is very mental health related. It's a topic I always want to explore further to help myself, also help others. Please follow me on social media and follow my projects. There are more different stories there from different comedians. And if you are suffering from some type of mental health issues, there are lots of help there. Stay hope and stay alive. And you also can write to me. Maybe I can share with you about some books or some other material. Just survive.
Yeah, and all of the links to her social media, her podcast, her show, all of those are in the description below. If you're in Berlin, come see her live whenever we're allowed to do that. Again, listen to her podcast, subscribe to her YouTube channel, and thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yeah, it is. You are a very good host.
Stop it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.